No, they say how to become a millionaire salmon fishing.
Yeah, you start off as a billionaire.
Welcome, everyone, to another excellent episode of the Average Ontario Anglers Fishing Podcast. As usual, we have, I was going to say at my side, but he's in a completely different city right now, is Jesse.
Hey!
Behind his own desk in front of his own computer. And we also have a third guest today. We have Arthur Reynoso, who you may recognize as Angling Art. He's also repping us, although he's got an Average Ontario Anglers t-shirt on. He is an honorary member of that group today.
No, below average angler.
Don't say that, then they won't want to hear what you say. He's awesome, guys. He slays in the creek, not only with the rod, but also with the camera too, which is pretty cool. So we're going to be going into shore casting for salmon. But before we get started on our main topic, this week we're going to have a story time.
Ooh.
So this one is kind of a destination story time because I just got back like yesterday from Nova Scotia. We went out to visit some family, and every time I go to Nova Scotia, I like to go do some fishing. I've mentioned it a couple times before on my lack of saltwater catches that I've ever had. My poor success whenever the water gets a little briny. But this year I decided I'm going to go out and I'm going to charter a boat, not like a private charter, just 15 people on board or so. And we're just going to go out, catch whatever. I said, I got to catch mackerel. I'd never caught a mackerel before despite trying. So when we went out, by the way, I took some notes because I need to remember the name. So Lunenburg Ocean Adventures, where he went with. Let's head to Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Highly recommend it. Awesome guys. The captain, Bill Flower. You may recognize him if you're into Shark Week because that's what he does. He's the guy who charters the boats and stuff for Shark Week. Him and his brother do a lot of the shark tracking and stuff like that out there on the East Coast in Nova Scotia, which is really cool. So he's very knowledgeable about that. So here we are in the morning getting all ready to go catch, some mackerel, maybe some pollock, some cod. Nothing super big, nothing super exciting. Now, I have to ask, what do you think is the most exciting fish? Or one of the most exciting fish when you think of a big monstrosity apex predator fish that's in the ocean? What do you think of?
Like where you were?
And anywhere. Like, what fish do you not want to come across in the ocean?
Well, for you, where you were, I would say like a bluefin tuna or a great white shark.
Great white shark? Good answer. I saw 5 of them.
Oh, wow.
It was absolutely nuts. So this guy, Captain Bill, he comes on the deck of the boat and he says, "Hey everyone, I got a surprise. There's a whale carcass that we found a couple days ago.
Oh,
and there's great
crazy.
white sharks feeding on it. So if you can find it again, we'll head over there and we'll take a look at it." So we drive out. We're getting close to where he had spotted it before. A couple research vessels are coming back, his brother and nieces and stuff there. And we get up to this floating whale carcass. Of course, it smells delightful. And, I'm thinking, okay, how are we going to see the sharks? Like, they're not going to be free-willying over this thing trying to eat it, right? And all of a sudden you see just like a bunch of mackerel just spook, like tons of like flashes and splashes around this whale carcass. And then you see this big dorsal fin come up and then tail come out of the water. And they lift their head. These great white sharks lift their head out of the water to grab onto like the floating portion of this whale. And it was a minke whale. So the whale's about 20 feet long. His daughter, Emily, she's the co-captain. She's also on board. So she was on the roof of the boat taking photos. And afterward, they were able to show that there were 5 separate great white sharks, 2 juveniles and 3 adults. They came up to the boat. We have a video of it actually biting the side of our fishing boat. It was nuts. 100% a once in a lifetime experience.
That is definitely.
But like it blew my mind because it's stuff you only see on like Discovery Channel. Like when you're watching Shark Week is to see something this big. And I had to tell you, the size of them was nuts. The first one you saw was a juvenile. It was about 7 feet long. And I mean, that's a big fish, obviously. Then we see this other one roll up that's 15 feet long. And then another one roll up that's slightly longer and was shaped like a football. This thing was huge. It was almost the size of the whale. And at one point it grabs the jaw of this minke whale and it starts like creating a wake behind the whale as it's towing it away. Absolutely nuts. But yeah, that was the most exciting part because then afterward we went over and we caught little dinky mackerel. But yeah, it was a really cool thing. Yeah, if you ever have a chance to get out there, check it out. We left again just giving a shout out because we have such a good time at Lunenburg Ocean Adventures with Captain Bill. We met the deckhand Carl. I said I mentioned him by name because he was a hoot and a half, a true guy from the East Coast, and he was absolutely fun. Fantastic. They'll clean all the fish for you. You got some really good mackerel, pollock, cod, all that good stuff. So that was a highlight of the trip, obviously, being part of a once in a lifetime experience like that. But that's the story time. I'm sure it was more exciting for me experiencing it than you listening to it secondhand. But
Well, I'll tell you, Andrew was sending me videos of the sharks, and I was just like at work. And he's like, check this out. It's just like a video of a great white shark going by the boat and biting it and then going back down. And I was like, did he like send me like a reel from Instagram? No, this is live. I was like, oh crap. I was like, put on your life jacket. That way when you're floating, they have an easier time to find you.
It's like that meme, you know that meme where it's like that your unemployed friend on a Tuesday and they
Yeah, literally.
just sending you stuff. That's an amazing experience, man. That's like some National Geographic type of thing.
absolutely.
Very rare to find a dead whale in the middle of the ocean, and then it tracks all this like a marine life, and having to see more than one great white shark. One is already amazing, but 5, that's cool.
I know at one time having 5, the captain, we knew it was special because the captain, who again, his other job is like Shark Week, like video recording, all that, getting people up to the sharks. He keeps looking out the window of the of the cockpit, and he's like, "Whoa, look at that!" And he's like freaking out. Like, if this guy's getting excited to see all this action, you know it's got to be special.
Oh,
That's like me anytime I go muskie fishing and see more than one fish. I'm like, oh! Of course we don't catch any of them.
it's just the same fish, bro. It's the same.
Yeah, literally. The freshwater shark.
At some point when I was messaging you, Jesse, were you thinking, great, now I'm going to find a new co-partner for Average Ontario Anglers?
I was like, I wonder if it's too late to change the name to Average Ontario Angler.
So that's our story time.
Did you get any footage, underwater footage? Like, did you shove like a GoPro under in the water?
I only had my cell phone on my arm, and I decided to keep that on board.
Oh, you should have put your arm in the water.
Started splashing it around quickly.
Yeah.
Andrew's just like, for the gram. That's hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. Huge thing. We did a bit of freshwater fishing, just in a couple kayaks, but we didn't get out for long just because the wind picked up, so it was limited time to do fishing, but it's always nice to get out there. If you ever have the chance, do some fishing on your vacations. Beg the wife, beg the family to say, hey, can I go fishing?
That's weird advice, but I understand for some people that is legitimate advice. But for me, my vacations, they start off with that plan. See, there's fishing in the middle, and then there's, you can drive there and go to this art gallery or this wine tasting. My wife's like, okay. It's not like the opposite. It's like, there's the fishing, everything else webs from that. So if you are one of those poor saps that can't do that like me, I'm sorry, but too bad. Jesse's getting mean.
So speaking of art again, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you like to fish for.
Okay, so my name is Arthur. Well, so a lot of people know me as Angling Art. I have an Instagram page, TikTok. I focus majority of my fishing on steelhead and salmon, and how I target them is either casting or flow fishing, which I absolutely love. Been doing it since I was like 10. And yeah, I just like to create content. I'm not sponsored whatsoever, and I do things because I thoroughly enjoy the sport and just the art of photography. It all started because of photography. I just wanted to capture things. And all 3 of us, we all lived the life before the internet. So I was taking photos before the internet for my own memories and satisfaction. So things just grew, and I just continued with the whole content thing. And just like yourself, I just do it because I love it.
So did you start with digital photography, or were you on film?
Oh, no, for sure. I had to, when I was younger, when I was like 11, 12, I used to just do disposable cameras and then just develop it at like Blacks. Some of our users, your viewers don't even know what Blacks is. So develop like that. And then those are probably like my favorite photos, by the way. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but the photos, and you could talk to anglers like yourself in the 70s, 80s, like those photos that are on film and on developed are probably our favorite photos, just because you can never get those back. And then now you have digital, you have iPhone, you can have thousands of photos, and it's just not the same. You guys know, it's not the same lore.
I was just going to say, my biggest bass, largemouth that I caught, 6.4 pounds. My dad took a picture of it on a wind-up Kodak. It was the biggest bass I've ever held, and he didn't use the flash. He just like wound it up, took this picture, and it was like at dusk, so it was like dark. And it's like me holding this picture of this giant fat bass, it's just like black. And everyone's like, where's this picture of this giant bass you got? I'm like, It sucks. You had to be there.
That's the story, right?
Yeah.
That's the memories. That's what I love photos, just because they bring back a wave of emotions, and fishing is all about emotions, right? So
I was gonna say it's something where it can kind of go hand in hand with fishing, where you can put a lot of effort and you have to wait for the reward. Like when you took all those photos, you're like, I think I'm doing it right. I think I have this framed properly. I have the right lighting. I have all this, my f-stop is properly set on the camera if you had a, iron camera, whatnot. And then you had to use up that roll, which you had a finite amount of pictures you could take. Then you had to wait like 2 weeks and then get them back.
Yes.
And then you could get your reward. And that's like fishing, right? You can,
100%.
much like salmon fishing that we're going to be talking about, you can go out there, you have to get all your stuff ready. You maybe have a limited amount of time you can get out. They're only here a certain time of the year. You have a limited amount of time yourself with your schedule, and you may go out a few times, but eventually you keep putting the effort and then you'll get that reward. So that's my segue.
Smooth.
Until I said that's my segue, and it's like, well, that just ruined it. But we're going to talk about, just quickly, why don't you mention why we're talking about shore casting for salmon now? Why are we talking about salmon now? Because most people think fall is a salmon run. So it seems like it's a little bit earlier, but why are we talking about it?
Well, basically, if you are a diehard salmon guy, steelhead guy, it's the same thing. It's the whole migration, right? So let's just start from the beginning. It starts off as an egg. Egg develops into a fry, and then a smolt, and then they shoot back to the ocean. The lake, they become an adult 3-4 years, and then they start to get into that migration again. So basically, this time of the year, they're still out in the blue zone. Talk to all the guys on the charters. They're doing great. Great on salmon, great Ontario salmon duty. It's going on, you know what I mean? But as the season goes by, they're going to start to change into their migration pattern. So they're going to start coming closer and closer to those river mouths, those piers, and where they were born, right? I don't know if you're a 90s kids watching this and that, but you know that episode of Miss Frizzle? that will teach you everything.
Where all the kids get turned into eggs and get melted on? Yes, I'm
everything.
aware of the episode.
It's Andrew's favorite.
So that's why. So nearing the end of summer is the perfect time to start targeting them. The rivers this season, the summer has been boiling hot. So I think it's going to be a later run just because the water's been so warm. But personally, I think it's going to be a great season because it's a COVID year. So what that means is COVID was like 3-4 years ago. Everything was like shut down. People couldn't really target fish. So that's what a lot of this run. A lot of guys are saying this run could be massive. That's just a prediction, but that's just from what I'm hearing and what I see and stuff like that. Last year's run was pretty good, and this year a lot of the guys are catching bigger fish out in the lake. So that translates to when the migration happens, right?
That'll be interesting to see.
I better start sharpening my treble hooks.
We'll see if Arthur can be granted the prefix of prophet. Prophet angling art. So let's talk a bit about their life cycle, where they're going to be. With the run itself, is there a difference? Like, is it better to go at the beginning of the run versus the end? Are there pros and cons to either one? Obviously, like prime is going to be in the middle of the run, most likely, right? For access to them when they're in the creeks and whatnot. But what's the benefit if you're a shore angler? And again, we're primarily talking about shore casting, but like, can you catch them from shore, kind of in those river mouth areas, those in the lake still, even, let's say, beginning all the way to the end of like the salmon season?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So basically, you can catch them through the entire salmon season, but you want to catch them obviously in the beginning because that's where they're going to be staging a lot. They won't be in the river as much yet because they're just waiting for, let's say, a heavy rain, a moon, a storm, something to trigger the temperature of the river, right? They're going to see something that's going to shoot them up. But for the most part, if you want to cast, you want to do in the beginning when they're staging. So the best, I guess, sign for you to see if they're there and closer, and if you're a beginner, it's the best way, look for the boats. Look for the boats. So when you're out there, when I get there in the morning or at night, I'll see where the boats are. And if the boats are far, far away, then as the season goes by, you see those boats come closer and closer and closer to the point where they're just boiling all over in front of the mouth, waiting for something to happen or waiting for something to trigger them to shoot upriver, right? And then as the season goes by, they're going to obviously be flying upriver. The river's going to be black. You can walk on their backs, and a lot of the guys leave the pier and they just go river fish, which is, hey, by all means, we all started there, right? So it's less crowded on the piers, and then you can still catch them at the piers. There's always latecomers to the party and stuff like that, but you won't get as much action as when they're just ready to go and they're just waiting out there staging.
So an interesting question, so I was going to say, is what's the earliest you've caught a salmon off the pier?
Oh, man.
July for me. this had to have been before I got married. So probably 15 years ago, there was a summer that was pretty cool. And there was a massive, massive rain. And I was working at a fishing store and all the guys were like, yeah, let's go to the pier. And I was like, it was like the last week of July. And I was like, there's no way, man. There's no way we're going to catch a fish. And we went out there and we were out there till like, I don't know, 11:30, 12 at night. And I actually caught one off the pier. It was like the last week of July. It was like silver.
Yeah.
But
100%.
it's so far and few between that time of year, even if there's a big rain, but you never
And that's
know,
exactly
right?
what it is. You caught it on a run. So what it probably happened was like the lake flipped and then cold water. They felt the rain. The river was cold and they sniffed it. And then you got a nice pod coming through. You know what me and my friends call it? We call it like a kamikaze fish. Because there's no way that they're going to survive. When they go up there, they're just going to boil and die up river. Yeah, I've caught some in July. And I've caught like browns and stuff like that. But that was like years ago when I was younger, like you said. I had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And just like roam around and fish and look for fish. But yeah, that's for sure. That's what happens. You can catch them now. I mean, you can catch that still now. But like I said, with the summer that we've had, basically zero rain. And it's been like 30 degrees like every day. I wouldn't even bother.
It is true though. Some of the fish that go up the creek, like if you're like taking a walk up the creek or whatever in like the summer, it's not uncommon to see a bunch of Chinook, like not a lot, but like a few here and there, shooting up the creek in like late July. And you're like, the water's like 80 degrees.
Yeah. Soup.
And then you see them dead. Like they can't survive in that amount of oxygen. Yeah. It's too bad. But salmon aren't known to be the most intelligent species of fish.
Much like myself. But so they're, you're short casting for salmon. And again, when you're in the fall time, late summer, fall, when they're close, it's exciting. You have access to these fish that are, again, when they're fresh, like in the early stage, like you said, like Jesse got that one in July and they're silver. Like when we see a lot of salmon, and if you've been fishing in the creeks, you'll catch them and they start going, like the Chinook salmon we have most commonly down here. And they start to get that green back and they start to get like these dark colors and stuff. Then you get the boots and the zombies later. When you catch one that's fresh out of the lake, this thing is, it's just like you have a hard time identifying between the cohos and the Chinooks, and because it's always like silver. And those
Cromer.
If you've only experienced catching river salmon, maybe you've hooked into one of those freshies that come up into the river really quickly, and you'll recognize a difference. You've probably lost it because you're fighting a freshie in the river. But when you're out in the bigger water, it can be so exciting to have these 30-pound fish, much like that one hanging up on the wall over there. But when they're silver and they have all that energy and they're just like ripping line off your reel, it's nothing like what you've experienced before. I'll tell the story probably later, but my first time trying to target salmon from shore. But
I was going to tell that story too.
It's exciting. Now, what kind of locations are you typically looking for, though? Because again, they're close to shore. We know like river mouths, but are there any other determining factors that would make you choose one spot over another?
Honestly, you could do other places too besides river mouths. You could do like harbors, just a little bit inwards. Like let's say we have the river mouth, and then you can go a little bit more inside. It's usually a deeper there. They can also use that as a staging area. And you could also cast in there too. I'll use a shorter rod, but you could also cast in there too. But then obviously once it gets too skinny up there, I wouldn't be bother casting. Maybe I know guys use smaller bass rods with spinners and stuff like that, which is fine in a deeper hole. But for the most part, you want to stick to river mouths, piers, anything that shoots out. And then sometimes, depending on the wind and stuff like that, and then you could actually fish the shores as well. So let's say the river mouths are already full of guys, and you notice there's fish busting to the left or to the right. You could go walk down a bit and just cast, and you get the same results. Because remember, they're just coasting along the beach line, right? Just waiting for something to trigger them to go up.
I've seen too, like I know Jesse and I have experienced, like you were saying, fishing some of the back bays, like at a harbor that's built oftentimes just off the mouth of the river. Even there's a couple harbors we've been to, and there's not like a creek that flows into it. But sometimes the salmon, I don't know if they get confused or whatever, and they just, maybe they're following the shoreline and they get caught into this harbor and they're like, oh, I'm confused now. I feel like they've escaped from a facility. You're just like, I forget where home is. Just like swimming in circles looking for someone to help them.
Yeah.
And that's where us anglers come in.
No, you'd be surprised. So I live in Scarborough, and there are some little creeks here that if the salmon runs really good, there'll be salmon in there. And I'm like, what are you doing here, man?
I remember in Coburg Harbor when I lived in there for a bit, there's this one like outflow. It's just like storm drains that leaves and it empties into the harbor area. And sometimes you'd get some like steelhead or some salmon, and they'd be able to be small enough to swim through the grate bars in front of it. And he would look down like the sewer hole, because when it went through a park, there's like this one like sewer lid, and when you'd look down, you'd see like salmon like swimming in the bottom, but they couldn't get any further than that first drop. It's like they got lost in literally a storm system.
100%. They look for that. So I don't know if you see that. There's a video. I don't know if it's in Alaska or whatever, but like the river overflows onto the road, and then you just see salmon going up the road. It's kind of the same thing. They're just looking for the easiest pathway up the river, right?
So what makes a good shore salmon casting spot? Like, are you looking for specific depths as well then?
Honestly, it just depends where you are. So I like fishing piers because it gets you further out into the lake. Because like obviously we're just using our 2 feet. We're not on a boat, right? So you have more access to more of the lake. But sometimes they're just not there. Sometimes they're somewhere else, right? So at the end of the day, you just have to just try spots and see where they are. Because it's funny because like you could be at one river mouth, and they're not there. And then you just go next door to another river, and you see them just waiting. So it all depends where you are and what time you are, or just what the conditions are, right? But when it's like the run is thick, you could probably go to any river mouth, any pier, any wall, and they'll be there just waiting.
And what about, you were mentioning too, sometimes the wind can push, or the waves and stuff, you can start catching salmon away from the river mouth. Do you think that it would be moving some of the salmon are following that smell to get back to their home creek, as it were?
Yes.
So really I guess they're just following that water then, right? Because they have to go where the odor is, and sometimes the wind and storms, whatever, can push that odor, their trail
100%
kind of off a bit.
Yeah, so there's been situations where I'll be fishing, or I'll go out on a super windy day, and the fish won't be in a certain area of the pier. But then if you look onto the horizon, you see them just busting all over the water, right? And then so you see that. So make the move. So you go over there and you start casting, and then you just start hooking up fish. Well, people still think that if you just stay in the same spot, you're going to catch something, but there's no action. But they're visibly telling you that they're there. So it's the same thing where there was a situation where I was fishing a beach, right? And the wind was insane. The wind was pumping waves towards the mouth, and fish were actually getting bullied into the shore. And like there were thousands of them, and I'm like, holy, right? So it's the same concept. So and then if you look at it, there's a lot of guys at the pier, and let's say it's a weekend. There's like 20 guys on each side, and it's a really strong wind. You'll notice sometimes that some guys on one side will be catching a lot more fish than the other guys, right? So it's just not a coincidence. There's patterns to these things, and you just got to look at it, analyze it, and you'll realize that there is a correlation between wind, temperature, moon phases, all this. You just have to connect it, and then you only get this because you fish. So
experience. That's what we hear time and time again.
Exactly.
Time on the water. So what about the tackle? I know, like Jesse and I, we've been talking for a while. We also have a video out where we give some recommendations about shore casting for salmon, and go into a lot about like the gear and stuff like that. But what about yourself? We'll talk about lures next, but the rods and reels, what would you recommend as a good setup for shore casting for salmon?
Perfect. I think that's a great question, man. So since as an average Ontario angler is like, I just want to, and I'm a simple guy, Jesse's a simple guy, you're a simple guy, Jesse's a construction guy just like me. So we just want to make it simple especially for newcomers to the sport and stuff like that. So highly recommend between 12 to 15 pound braid. If you want to put a leader on it, great. You could put like a 15-pound fluorocarbon leader. If not, stick to braid. And then for your rod, you could either do like between a 9.6 and a 12. Guys do 13, but I just like that range. And as for your reel, you want to do something like a 3,000 or 4,000 size reel. That means, if you don't know what that means the size of the reel. So Jesse's going to show you one right here. So basically the reason why is because the reason why you want to
falling apart.
The reason why too much stuff, man. Too much AliExpress stuff. Is that a 3,000? Is that a 3,000?
That's a 4,000.
Yeah, so you look how big that is. So basically the reason why you want a 4,000 size reel is for line capacity. Because like Jesse said, if you catch a hot fish, like if you're fishing August, early September, and you hook either in the tail, in the back, or in the mouth, you hook a hot fish, it's going to take you. And mind you, the reason why we fish the pier is so the fish can go anywhere it wants. And that's what makes it so fun. So you want to definitely have that on your side as an advantage. And don't get me wrong, you could still get spooled. You could still get whooped out there. But you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it gives you a better advantage. So, and then for the rod, I think the rod, for rod type, back to what I was saying with the rod, you don't have to go super expensive. Brands like, let's say, Convergence. You could do Claris, which I have. You could do Streamside. You could do, I forgot what, there's other, and I forgot what else I have. There's another Shimano rod I have. But at the end of the day, like, you don't have to break the bank for casting rods. So Streamside is a great rod. Anything like around 100, 120 bucks is great. For the power, you're looking for at least medium heavy. And then for the action, I think what did I have? I think medium fast. So basically, you want something kind of stout so you can whip your spoon or whip your body bait or whip your crankbait, something you could just whip really far, right? And you also want a heavy backbone because obviously we're not fishing for like little trout. We're fishing for like 20 to 30 pound salmon out there, which are hot. Like you said, silverfish, hot fish still in the summer. The water's cold out there. You're going to hear your reel burn. And basically, so that's a rough. So rod, reel, line. I think I covered everything.
And so you mentioned leaders. I know myself, I would say I agree with having braid because, again, once you start casting braid, you can cast so much further. And about shore casting, there's a lot of spots sometimes where, like one spot that we frequented for a long time, the first 2/3 of your cast, the salmon don't come in that close because it was over a weed bed. So you're only getting like the last 30 of your cast might be getting into where the salmon actually are. So if you can increase your casting distance by 10 feet, you've maybe doubled the amount of actual fishing range that, with that having that extra 10 feet, that's the most important 10 feet of your cast is to get a little bit further. So I agree, having some braid on is great, but I also would recommend having a shock leader we talked about before. So that's either fluorocarbon or monofilament. And what happens is braid doesn't stretch, but both of those will stretch, normally to about 30% stretch they'll have. And so with that, right away, if your drag is set slightly too tight and you hit that fresh fish, and I'll do a little story time because Jesse took me salmon fishing for the first time. How old were we? I was 14, 15?
Yeah, he was young.
Yeah, we were pretty young. Jesse had been doing it for a while. And so I brought my medium heavy bass rod and my 2500 reel. That's all I had. I had one combo. And so I brought that, and I think I had 30 pound just straight braid tied on. So I was often just going for pike. And so I had that on, and I started casting spoons and borrowing Jesse's spoons. And I'm like, how will I know when I get one, Jesse? He's like, you'll know.
I think Andrew thought that it would be like regular fishing where you'd feel a bite and be like, okay, now I'm going to set the hook.
Yeah. I absolutely did think that.
And I was like, it's like hooking a rapidly sinking anchor. Suddenly.
So I keep, cast reel. He's like, oh, you're going to let it sink for a few seconds and reel in. I'm like, and I was like, oh, is that one? I'm like, no, it's a rock, snap off the line, and I lost that spoon. I keep tying them on. All of a sudden, I boom, zzz, like 3 seconds, boom, line snaps. I'm like, what happened? Jesse's like, that was a salmon. He just doesn't bat an eye. He's like, yeah, you're using the wrong setup.
Yeah.
So I snapped off 3 salmon. The longest time I fought one for was about maybe 5 seconds, and it completely spooled me. Like,
hilarious.
I lost about $25 of Jesse's baits, which he wasn't very happy about.
Which he still hasn't paid me back for.
That's back in the day too.
That was 20 years ago.
Now those baits have inflation now.
I can't recover financially now to do it. That's why.
He should have paid me back then, because back then little Cleos were only $3.99, and now they're like $12.99.
Yeah.
But that's the importance of having a proper combo. Have people caught salmon on their bass gear, yeah, but I tell you, you are going to be completely at a loss when you hook into a 20+ pound salmon and you're trying to fight it on your ugly stick. Your rod might not break, but I'm pretty sure your gears will probably fuse together. Your plus drag washers.
You have no leverage on a shorter rod, right? Like, it depends. Like, if you're on the pier, maybe leverage isn't the biggest deal, but some spots you're fishing in marinas and stuff that have dock posts and stuff like that, and you make casts and the fish shoots off sideways and you got to kind of lean over and pull on them to turn their head. With a short 7-foot rod, you're not able to do that. So my preference, my favorite length, I've tried them all: 8.5, 9.5, 10.5. I like 9.5. I had a 10.5 rod that I really liked. It was one of those 13 fishing Fate steels.
Oh, yeah.
And I tripped on a rock when I was salmon fishing, and I dropped the rod and snapped it in half. I was so mad. Then they discontinued.
I was going to say, a lot of my uncles fish that rod, and I'm like,
it's a great rod.
I'm like,
10.5 foot.
They're like, it discontinued. I'm like,
yeah. But I have a 9.5, and then depends where we're fishing. Some areas we fish where we're kind of like in a harbor, I like an 8.5 is a little shorter if you're not casting as far. But to go back to the braid thing, I would like to say this. I have a bunch of Stratic 4000s. I actually have like 4 of them because I'm randomly buying these. Like this is the old white one. I bought this brand new, like what, 20 years ago? Like how old these white ones were. But one of my OG Stratics, the old white one with the walnut carved handle. Remember that one?
Yes, yes.
I used to fish for salmon with 10-pound mono back in the day before braid was really popular. I don't sound like we're that old, but like when we were starting to salmon fish, braided line wasn't really popular. And once I switched to braid, like you can, like Andrew said, you can cast so much farther. And let's be serious, like a little Clio or like a spoon you're using, the hooks aren't thin wire. So you need to really get a good hook set into these fish. So you do get no stretch. So you do get a really good hook set, which is another advantage. But the third advantage is you can hold so much more line on your reel because braided line is so thin. So like 10-pound braid is like, 4-pound thin or less, right? Yes. So if you get 15-pound braid, you're at like 8 or 6-pound thin. So you can fit like way more line on a reel. So now I'm not saying you should use a 2500, but for a 4000, you can hold a lot of line on it and you're much less likely to get spooled, which means the fish pulls all your line off. If you have, say, 12-pound mono, you're probably at half the amount of line than if you were using braid. So definitely use braid. It's a huge advantage, but not like Andrew. Don't use it on a heavy pike rod.
Well, back to what you were saying with the whole rod thing. Like you said, you could use a bass rod, but it goes back to A, that's not the really right tool, and B, you're not going to enjoy it. Like when you have a longer rod, you have that bend and you could really like enjoy the fight. Like you're actually fighting it on a boat or just, it just feels so much better. But when you're fighting it with like a crappy rod or a bass rod, it's not the same. Like you're worried about, it already beating you up and stuff like that. So it's just not the same. Like you
and
can
the
do
reel
it
too. Like having another benefit to having those 4000 size reels is you were able to pick up line fast, because that's happened a few times too, where I was still using a bass rod at the time and I hooked into one and started running towards me. I was able to keep it on, but I had slack line for about 3 seconds after it ran 100 feet towards me in 2 seconds, and I could not keep up with it. So with the larger size spool, you have more pickup on each reel as well. So you can, again, you just have better control. And we talk a lot about the show on different species of, if you're starting out, you can get this, you can do this, you can do this. Salmon is one of those things where it's something where we highly recommend to have the right gear for it, because it's a completely different beast than just your regular bass or pike and stuff like that. It's a totally different fight, and you'll love it when you hook into one. But you'll love it more, like Arthur was saying, you'll love it more when you have the right gear to handle it during that fight.
Yeah. Remember that time, Andrew, we went pike fishing, and on the way home, we're like, oh, it was September, and we're like, let's go down to the river mouth and chuck some spoons. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have any salmon gear. I just had my swim bait rod, like a bass swim bait rod. It's like an 8-foot extra heavy swim bait rod, 50-pound braid. I literally even had a wire leader on, and I just put on like a Len Thompson glow spoon on the wire leader. I was just like, whatever, we'll make a few casts. And I actually caught one on it. It was terrible. Like that rod was so stiff. I was scared the whole time that my rod was going to snap, because the fish was going nuts, and the rod has like no flex because it's just like a stiff swim bait rod.
Yeah, exactly.
And the line was so thick. I was like, dude, if this fish like shakes its head the wrong way, my rod's going to snap. But I actually got it in. But I was like, yeah, it truly does make a difference having the proper equipment for sure.
Mm-hmm. So we talked a little bit about different lures, but focusing on shore casting, what are some of your favorite shore casting baits to use?
That was perfect. So I'm just going to start off with my favorite. It's not even casting. It's skiing. You can skiing off the piers and stuff like that, but we'll get into that a whole other time. But let's talk about it. So I think
hanging berries.
Yeah, hanging berries. So my first one would be this right here. These are my favorite. These are moonshines. They glow really well. This is probably one of my favorite spoons to toss while shore fishing or pier fishing for salmon, especially at night, dusk or dawn. They glow really well. They cast really well too. They're pretty heavy. Yeah, exactly. I call that one the alien. But yeah, those are amazing. You can start off with those. Second would be, I guess, this one. This is my, I think, second favorite. And you guys already, I know Jesse has one. I know you have one. This guy right here. This guy's probably, so it's by Rapala, or just any type of jointed body bait. I think Storm makes some too. But yeah, any type of body bait. You could even do, what's it called? Like lipless crank baits, stuff like that. But so this is, yeah. Oh, this guy right here. Right here. You and Jesse are on the same boat.
And of course, what color? Fire tiger.
Fire tiger.
Others
So,
we've had good success on like orange, on
yes,
blue, and
100%.
clown even.
So
I've got it on, but
those are definitely my. These are my.
traditionally
And
see
then
fire tiger.
lastly, I'm okay with showing this bait because it's discontinued. So it's like it's not even a secret, but this bait right here.
Okay.
This bait is by Live Target. It's banana bait, and so basically what you're looking for, they sell this type of bait too, but not specifically this one. But you're looking for like a one that wobbles. A lot of walleye guys use this on the boat. A lot of charter guys also use this for salmon, for coho, stuff like that. So this is probably one of my favorite baits to toss. Yeah. They don't sell these anymore, guys. Unfortunately,
I've been fishing a long time.
anybody
people.
watching these are by Live Target. They got bought out by Mustad, and they don't make these anymore. So if you ever see a guy tossing one of these, offer them like $50, $80 to buy one, because I've got offers literally on the pier. They're like, "Yo, let me buy that from you," and I'm like, "Hell no, man!"
You want to see an old lure that people have wanted to buy from me? Remember these?
Yes, I have those too. I have a silver
the
one.
Rebel Fast Tracks.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anything with like a banana style, anything with a wobble, anything that has a joint, something to just piss them off, to get that sense of aggression from them, to chase them, right? So back what I said. So we have spoons, we have lipless cranks, and then we have body baits or jointed baits. So I think those are some of the three best lures that you can toss for casting for salmon, and not to overcomplicate it. So a lot of guys in the States, they swear by KO wobbler. I had a couple, I lost them because they work. You can do little Cleos, and then during the day. So during the day, let's talk about it quickly. During the day, you could toss any silver or gold spoons because of the sun. Anything that's hammered, anything that's diamond patterned, stuff like that. That works really well when the sun is high and stuff like that. And speaking of that, the reason why, let's go back to what I said about the leader thing. You can go straight braid, but if you're going to cast during the day, I like throwing on a leader just so it's like, less visible and they can see it. Don't think that these fish are stupid sometimes.
How long of a leader do you like to use then?
I like between like, I think, I don't want to complicate it, but like 3-4 feet, something that's not too crazy, because like when you're fishing around other people, you don't want your leader so long where like, you hit people behind you or beside you and stuff like that. But again, you only need that short section just so the fish don't see it. Because when the sun is hitting down onto the water, they can see that braid, it casts a shadow and stuff like that. That's what I personally think. That's why I throw a leader. But when it's like murky water, stained water, or the fish are just super aggressive, it really doesn't matter. Just put straight braid, barrel swivel, and just throw it out there, and then yeah.
Now, when you're casting any of those selections, your spoons, your cranks, whatever, most of them sink. So let's go with the spoon. It's going to be the most popular. And Jesse and I, we've used Moonshine. We like those. The Len Thompson, they have the Super Glow. Those work really well.
Len Thompson.
The little Cleo glow spoons are like super classic. Probably the oldest one that's still commonly used. Again, all those primarily glow because most of the time you're fishing in the low light or even into the night before that. But when you cast out, let's say we already kind of talked about some casting distance. How far? As far as you can. That's whatever you can do with a longer rod or a thinner line that you can still land fish on. Just get it out as far as possible. Most of the time, I would say, unless there's a bank on the other side you don't want to hit. But when you retrieve, how often, like when you have made that cast, do you prefer to let it sink first, or do you just start reeling in right away? Or when do you decide to do either or?
Oh, this is actually a perfect question, because like I was hoping you would ask this question, because like I kind of like researched this question. Okay, so for guys that don't understand what goes on in the lake when guys are chartering boats, so they have this thing called a fish hawk. They send it down. They have a trolling motor. Some have trolling motors, some don't. So the fish hawk checks the temperature, and the checks your speed, and then this helps the anglers dial in that speed and of their lure so they can catch more fish. So all you got to do is repeat that process. So find the bait that catches, and then find the speed that you're going. So obviously, as shore anglers, we don't have this luxury. We don't have a fish hawk. We have nothing to tell you how fast I'm going, how slow I'm going, how deep we're going. So it's all trial and error. So what you're going to do is you're going to cast it out there, like you said, as fast as you can or as far as you can, and you're just going to try different things. You're going to burn it. So me and my friends, we call it burning it. So you're just going to just reel as fast as you can, or there's going to be times where you let it flutter. So with a spoon, especially at night, and you cast out there, depending how deep it is, where you are, maybe 16 feet, 30 feet, wherever you are, you're going to cast it out there, and you're just going to let it flutter sometimes. You're going to count maybe 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, and just try different seconds, right? And then start retrieving. And then there are some times where we've had days where they just hit it on the flutter, which any guy who's experienced that is probably one of the most insane bites, right? You don't even need to cast it. I mean, you don't even need to retrieve it. Imagine you throw it out there, let it flutter, and you just feel a truck hit you, right? So there's that. And then there's the whole like burning it. So sometimes as the season goes by, they're not, as the salmon season goes by, it's the fish aren't as active as they were in the beginning, and they're very like not lethargic, but you know they're dying, they're rotting, they're not eating anymore, they're just chasing things out of aggression. So you could just reel a little bit slower, right? But in the beginning of the season, they're chasing things, they're aggressive, they're still silver, they're fresh, right? So again, it all depends on just not depends, but it's all trial and error. So if you get bit, try to remember how you did it. You're just replicating how you got bit. So let's say you casted it out there, you waited 3 seconds, and you did like a moderate retrieve, and you got hit. So just keep doing that, or just change it up. Sometimes pause, let it flutter, retrieve it again, pause, let it flutter. But you obviously you don't want to hit the ground because you're going to hit a rock, and there goes my $10 lure, right?
Yeah.
So that's just basically, again, to answer what you were saying. Yeah, it's just trial and error, trying to figure it out. Just like how you musky fish. Sometimes they don't want that bait. Sometimes they want it fast. Sometimes they want it slow. Sometimes it's figure eight. Sometimes they just smash it right away as it hits the water. So
most times they don't want anything. But at least they'll let you know. They'll follow it to the boat and then reject you at the last minute.
Yes.
But I think one thing I learned from watching videos on YouTube of people that had those wolf cams behind their lure or in front of their lure, trolling. There's a guy, I forget who it was, but he was actually doing it in the GTA. So it was like actually local fish. And he'd have like a spoon or a Rapala just, wobbling behind his kayak, and he's going up and down, and salmon will follow the lure, like intensely looking at it. And then they just like go up to it, and then they go back, and then they go up like they're going to hit it. And then they just like swim away. And he's like, it's more frustrating than anything, realizing how many salmon actually track and follow your lure and then don't hit it. So it makes me think, and I don't know if it's just, me being a bass guy or a musky guy, but I wonder if actually like letting it flutter down or jerking your rod or reeling it fast for a second triggers the fish to actually hit. Because I think fluttering definitely does that. Because if you're reeling your spoon in and it's just wobbling, then you stop reeling and it just flutters down. I honestly think a lot of times a fish will hit it when it changes direction if they're tracking it, right? So food for thought.
That's honestly a value. If you talk to guys on a boat, sometimes they say you get bit a lot when they're making a turn. So they're when they're trolling and stuff like that, and then they're turning to do the same pass or another pass, they'll get bit. And that's because it's either a change in direction of the bait or something changed. And just like you said, like, they're just so intrigued with the bait. And then if it does something different, they'll snatch it. But
that's actually funny. Quick story about that. So me and Andrew this was last year, actually. We would do some just flatline trolling in the Sports Pal canoe in the river mouths, some of them. And if you're wanting to try this, it's extremely dangerous. So please be safe about it and do your research. But we're not going to talk about that this episode. But we were out in the Sports Pal and we were both fishing the same lure. We both I had on this moonshine. Andrew had on one too. And we were trolling behind the boat. He was on one side of the boat. I was on the other side of the boat in rod holders, right? And we're just trolling around. And every time we would turn at a certain area, my rod was like, just go off and boom, caught a fish. Okay. I caught the fish, got it up and, took a few pictures, released it, and then, cast out again, start trolling around again. We go around that same corner. And as I'm turning, my rod, I think my rod was the outside rod. So as I turned, my lure would speed up to go around the corner and Andrew's lure would slow down. The second run, boom, my rod goes off again, slammed another fish. And Andrew just looks at me and I'm like, all right. So I handed him the rod. He's fighting the fish. Then we went around again. Same thing. Boom, caught another one. We caught 3 in about an hour. And most of those fish happened in like, I think 20, 30 minutes.
There you go.
But it just goes to show you that like both the lures were going like the same distance behind the boat. We did a bunch of straight runs, nothing. There's probably fish following those lures underwater. I don't even want to know. But then when we made that turn, the one lure sped up or slowed down. I forget which one. And those were the ones that slammed it. So think of that when you're retrieving, if you can replicate something like that by speeding up or slowing down, or even just moving your rod to the side or something like that,
That's actually an amazing story. That's great. That's basically shows you that little.
I love that story. It makes me sound amazing.
That little difference got you bit. So like you
Total
said,
skill.
Something so stupid as in just like letting it pause. or just letting it
Yeah.
flutter extra foot and you get bit, right?
And that's why they always say, they're like, oh, that's the hot rod tonight. Like the rod
Yes.
that's getting all the bites, but it has nothing to do with the rod. It has to do with where it is, right? So,
And
Yeah.
we were saying too, again, is being consistent. Like if you find a speed that's working, the biggest thing is trying to, like you said, replicate it. Salmon, like it can change temperament or what's working throughout the season from day to day, from midday to night. But generally, if you all of a sudden got a bite, you keep doing that night, you'll get more bites. So once you find something that works, and something that I've found helps me when I'm fishing from shore, because my issue is I'll finally get a hit. And it may even just be like a bump, but I'm like, oh, there's something. And the next cast, I'm feeling it now. I'm reeling it a bit quicker now. And I realize like I cut down my retrieve time by like 5 seconds between the last cast and this one. So something that helps me is I'll find a song or something that'll help me keep a tempo. I'll have it in my head. So as I reel, I know I'm reeling at that, that beat as I'm reeling in. And then let's say I want to go faster and find something that works. I'll be like, okay, like I was reeling this fast to, let's say, this song in my head, or something that is you can keep time with. That way you don't get overly excited. You just, okay, what's the beat I need to go at? And you can just replicate that and keep going there. So that helps me, because otherwise my speed just keeps getting faster and faster every time I hit a fish.
Andrew's like, I catch most of my fish retrieving to Shania Twain songs.
Man, I feel like a woman.
Well, speaking of speed, like you guys bring that up. So I know you guys did a video about like ice fishing and stuff like that, and like the motion of the lure. So it honestly, when I was younger, I thought I was going fast. I thought I was going slow. But I think as anglers, we underestimate that. So when you're retrieving and you think you're going fast, you're actually not going fast enough. And then sometimes you think you're going slow, but you're going too fast, and you think you're going slow, but you're not. So again, it just has to do with experience and stuff like that. Because like I'll watch guys. So there's another tip. So if you see guys catching beside you, look how they're reeling. If you see that they're just burning it fast, then burn it too. But if you see them going slow, then go slow, right? But again, it can be very underestimating. Like let's say, like you said, like when you're ice fishing and you think you're moving it like very like subtly, but if you have a camera down there, the jig is going like this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing, where it's just like you think you're retrieving it slow, but in fact, it's actually going really fast and it's doing a lot of action. So
Yeah. You can't pull a bait away from a Chinook salmon. You can't reel fast enough. There's no way they can swim 30K an hour. Like you can't reel that fast. If it wants to eat it, it'll eat it. Actually, one of my favorite like memories salmon fishing is when I was younger, I grew up near a local river mouth and I used to go down there like all the time when the run was on. And I remember I used to use like the classic J13, like that was everyone's favorite lure. But one lure that I got really onto is using lipless crankbaits, right?
Yeah.
Like this one here is one of my favorites. This is the Rip and Wrap. I don't even know if they still make it, but yeah, they're loud and you can reel them in really fast. Like unlike a spoon, like if you reel in too fast, you can kind of blow it a spoon and it'll just start spinning back in. But like a lipless crank, you can literally burn in, and as it's coming in, you can hear it 30 feet away underwater. Just like that, right? And I had a few days where like it was slick calm and I'd chuck it out and then just burn it really fast. And you just see like a wake come behind your lure, like a big Chinook just come in and just start tracking it. And all of a sudden you just feel like, boom. Yeah. Absolute insanity. And I think that's one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most underrated salmon lures is a lipless crankbait. I don't know why more people don't fish them. You can cast them super far. They've got 2 treble hooks on them. They're super loud and annoying. And you can count them down. Like if you're on a pier, you can count them down. They sink 1 foot per second. Like, hey, the fish are 15 feet down, cast out a lipless crankbait, count to 15 and start reeling in. Like it's easy as it gets. And like you said, it's like the countdown method, right? First time you cast, let it sink 10 feet. The next time, try 15 feet and start working down. Maybe try 5 casts at each depth and just start working down till you start connecting with fish, right? But yeah, that's my story. The good old days.
Good old days.
So let's say you have a mind like a vice. And you've listened so far and you have done everything right. You've hooked a salmon. It hasn't spooled you yet. I say yet. You're fighting this thing. You've got the proper rod and reel and you use the right lure, obviously. And now what do? Let's say you're on a pier.
Yeah.
You might be, 6-10 feet above the water level. And you have, let's be generous here. You have 30-pound salmon, your personal best, let's say. How do you now land it so you can get the photo with it?
Honestly, at the end of the day, just enjoy it. Like you gotta let it tire itself out, man. What are you going to do? It's got the whole entire, it doesn't have the river. It's like, it has no restrictions. It can go in any direction. It can go one side of the pier. It can go the other side of the pier. You just gotta have to, it's a one-on-one match. You know what I mean? Especially a fresh fish. You're going to have to tell guys, hey, excuse me, fish on. And then I got to walk down and then walk up. It's going to take you places. You know what I mean? So again, it's just something that you have to get good with experience. Like guys, I've seen guys lose fish all the time. I've seen guys lose fish all, they either break it, they want to horse it, or the fish just can't be controlled. It's not hooked properly. Maybe it's on the dorsal fin, maybe it's on the tail. Again, it all has to do with experience and having the right gear, right? So, or it just, and a whole lot of luck. A whole lot of luck. So yeah, as soon as you get it, I hope you, when you're at the pier, you have a pier net. You have someone who can net it for you and help you. And just be really careful with those hooks, because I've seen so many. This is the season where guys are going to get hooked trying to get a lure out of a salmon's mouth because they're going to thrash. And you better know how to take hooks out, or you're going straight to the hospital. So
yeah.
As musky guys, I bet musky guys, you guys have to know how to take hooks out.
Yeah. Having a 2-pound bass connected to a fishing lure connected to you is terrible. Having a 25-pound fish head shaking and tearing your body apart, literally.
So yeah, I think my best advice for new anglers who just want to try this and want to land a salmon off the pier and stuff like that is just try trial and error. It's not the same as river fishing. You know what I mean? This fish can take you out into the lake and spool you. And there's no turning. Even if you wanted to turn it, lock down your drag, you're snapping it. It's either you're getting spooled or you're getting snapped. So if you want to save $30 online, go ahead. Just snap it off. But if you actually want to try to land it, have the right gear. And you know what I mean? Just pump down, reel, just enjoy it, right? So let it take its runs. Let it get that energy out, and just hope it doesn't spool you. And then, as you say, work your way back, and then net it, and then that's it.
And a pier net, like I said, a pier net, usually they'll extend. So you can get, a 10-foot reach in your net, which is fantastic when you need that. But even if you're shore fishing, some guys will say, oh, just they're used to fishing steelhead or whatever, or trout, and they would beach it. Now, beaching isn't ideal because it can rub off a lot of the slime inside of the fish. It can be damaging to them. You're shoving their face full of rocks. Yes, salmon are going to be dying in 2 weeks or whatever after you catch it, because they're going to go spawn and die. But at the same time, you want them to release and then finish their spawn. So they need to survive to that point. So if at all possible, we've had days where we forgot a net. We've been in the boat, forgot a net. That's when I caught my big one. And, Matt Savea netted it for us. So a net is necessary. Even when you're fishing, let's say from a soft bank, having a net, having it close to shore. There's been many times where me or Jesse have fallen in, gotten soakers on, cold water because we're trying to tail a fish that's, against shore. And it's just, have a net.
It's a nightmare.
And another thing, have a net that can handle the salmon. Yeah. These things 100%. Have a bony head. They're super hard, super smooth, like slick. If it gets its tooth on one of the piece of the net, it'll just like rip that net, shove its head back, and swim through it, and just tear your net in half. We've had it happen to us. And then I guarantee you're going to lose that fish. Now your line's running through your net.
Yeah, it's true. That did happen to us, unfortunately.
On more than one occasion.
Actually, we had a net and a fish ripped through it, and I put it down, and then we forgot it that night. And I was like, because I was just going to buy a new mesh for it.
Yeah.
Someone stole it when we went back. It was gone. And I'm just like, I hope that guy doesn't see the rip in the net, because it wasn't that big. And then he has a big fish on, and it just goes right through his net. I'm like, I hope there's karma. I hope.
I was just going to say, with nets, you can choose whether you need, if you're fishing pier, get a long-handled one because you need to be able to reach down. If you're fishing from shore, you can just use a short landing net, but that netting has to be able to handle the fish.
Yes.
Or else it's pointless.
Just two things with the netting. So not just the whole ethics about it, about dragging the fish on the shore and the slime and stuff like that. It's efficiency. So when you're trying to hand bomb a fish on shore or grab the tail, you really have to wait till it's exhausted to get a chance. But when you have a net, it could still be have some energy. But if you have a guy who knows a great net man, he can just net it for you, unhook it, and you guys can go fishing again. It's the same thing for the pier. If the action is hot, I want to be catching more and more fish. So I don't have time to go to the end of the pier and walk down and try to fumble and try to grab the tail of a fresh fish. No, I could have a buddy there, scoop it up, unhook it, throw it back. That's it. And then speaking with the nets, we don't have to talk about it a lot, but it's just two types of nets. You have a mesh net, a rubber net, and a nylon net. So a lot of guys on the boats love the nylon net because they're strong and they're deep, and because there's money on the line on the lake, and you want to catch a trophy and stuff like, especially when you're on the tournaments. So, but the problem with nylon nets is the hooks can get into the nylon, and it's a whole disaster trying to take them out. But then with the rubber nets, the hooks can't really get like jabbed into the rubber, and if they do, you can just pull them right out. But I feel like they're not as strong as nylon nets. And like I've ripped already like a bunch of rubber nets, but on the advantage, rubber nets are good for like for the slime. You know what I mean? They don't take the slime off as much as nylon net does.
Going into a bit more etiquette and safety. So etiquette's important because when you're shore casting, unless you have private property on a large section of lake, you're probably going to be fishing with other people around you that you don't know, with strangers. And our goal, and we go out there, is to not be the worst guy on the bank. if everyone's at least as nice as I am when I'm out there, I know I'll have a good time. So that's the goal. So what are some things that when you're fishing shoulder to shoulder, let's say there's a lot of guys out, what are some things to keep in mind for proper fishing etiquette? Now, these aren't hard and fast rules because there's no rules, written laws about it. We're talking about etiquette. What's just polite to do? So what are some recommendations that you keep in mind when you are fishing around with other people?
This is like this time of the year, it's going to get like, you know what I mean? It's going to get tight. A lot of guys want to fish for salmon off the shore. And again, it's only so many spaces. Like if you have a boat, you have unlimited spaces, but on the shore, you only have a certain amount. So just again, be respectful to all the anglers around you. If I was here since 6 a.m., don't think you could just walk up on me in the afternoon. Like I've been on the spot for like 6 hours, 7 hours. I woke up early. So first thing is, if you want the spot, be prepared to wake up early and just wait your turn. So as the night goes by, so me and my friends always talk about it. There's like a mid shift, there's a midnight shift, and then there's a morning shift, and then there's an afternoon shift. So as guys come to fish dusk, they'll leave around midnight, and then you have guys who have like midnight shifts come in, and then they'll fish midnight to dawn, and then you have the dawn guys, and they'll fish till the afternoon. So pick which time you want to fish, and go a little bit earlier so you can get that prime time that you want to fish. So if you want to fish in the morning, get there around like 3 a.m. and then just cast and maybe take a nap on the rocks and stuff like that, and then work your way as the midnight shift leaves, you can work your way to that spot that you want. So that's rule number 1. And then rule number 2 is be careful where you're casting. As in, like, look behind you. Don't be reckless and just like think you could just whip your lure everywhere. Like, no one wants to go to the hospital, man. And especially if like you're tired, you're cranky because you haven't got any sleep because you just want to fish. Like, you're going to cause problems, especially if you don't respect people's spaces. So, like, I know things are going to get tight and people want to just fish shoulder to shoulder. And sometimes that's what it has to be because guys want to utilize the space, right? And, like, rule of thumb usually is just like a rod length away. But in a perfect world, that's not going to happen. So, especially when you're fishing with your friends, you're like shoulder to shoulder because everyone knows how to cast. But if you're a beginner, just please be very wary of where you're casting because you don't want to get hooked. You want to hook someone in the eye. You don't want to hook someone in the head. Ow! You just don't want to hook anybody in general. And then that can lead towards fights and situations that you don't want to be in, especially if you're young. You don't want to be fighting like these grown cranky men. You know what I mean? And as for like a rule, like, you know, help your fellow anglers. Like if you see a guy by himself, especially me, like I like to fish by myself sometimes out there and like, if I see someone, if I'm struggling to net a fish, someone offer to help. So I'll always help my neighbor to land a fish. You know what I mean? So, cause like it's tough out there, right? The waves are, you know, crashing over the pier or the rocks. Rocks are slippery. It's raining. It's windy. It's already stressful enough trying to land this fish and now I have to net it by myself. So do your part and just offer, be like, hey man, do you need help? And if they say no, then it's on them. But if they say yes, you know, be respectful like that. And then lastly, I think with the whole tangling lines. Oh my God. So you have two piers. You have guys casting this way. You have guys casting this way. And it can get crazy, especially if everybody's catching fish. So before I go on a rampage, on a tangent, just be wary of where you're casting and open your mouth. Open your mouth. Tell people where you are. Yell fish on. Yell where you are, especially at night. No one knows where your fish is going. Only you know. So if you say, hey man, fish coming down or fish coming up, at least guys can reel their lines and then you can be respectful and then they'll do the same thing with you. So respect is earned and respect is gained. And yeah, just guys won't be mad. I won't be mad if you have a fish on that's going this way. I'll just reel my line and let you enjoy your 10, 20 minutes of fishing. And then you can land it or lose it, whatever the case might be. But if I'm fishing and your fish goes right through my line and then now I'm yelling at you, you're yelling at me. It's just not gonna work out. So
Tell your story, Jesse.
there's always a story.
So like Arthur said, so when you hook a fish, you yell out, fish on, because especially like we do a lot of night fishing, and when you hook a fish, as soon as you hook it, it's gonna go on a run. You can't stop it. The first run, it just goes. So you yell fish on, and people reel in, because as that fish is going, it's also, your line is tight to the fish. So if people keep casting, their lure is gonna snag your line, right? Which isn't good. So anyway, one night we were fishing with a whole group of guys, like 4 of us. And there was another guy just up the bank, and I'm casting right in front of me, and I hook, not a huge fish, it's like a 20-pounder. Bass guys are just like, what? That's a mid-sized fish. But anyway, it was just like a 20-pounder. And I had him on, and he started going up, and we're yelling like, fish on, fish coming towards you. And this guy was just still casting. And I was like, what is he doing? He snags my line. And his lure must have went down towards the fish, because he's like, oh, I got one. And I was like, dude, you snagged my line. And he's like, no, I'm not. It's not. It's a different fish. And I'm like, look at our lines, man. They're going to the same spot. He's like, you snagged my line. I was like, I had a fish on, and I yelled fish on. You cast over my line, then all of a sudden you have a fish on? So it gets to the point where we're literally tug of warring each other. Like, he's over there, I'm over here.
In the middle.
The salmon in the middle, and I'm pulling this way, and I see his rod bend this way. He pulls, my rod bends. I'm like, you see that you have like my fish on, right? And he would not admit it. This guy he was not like Art. He was a total wiener. It just blew my mind that he would not admit that he had snagged my fish. And then it got to the point where it broke off. The fish broke off. And
I was watching the whole thing happen, and when it broke off,
I wish I could have been there to watch this.
it broke off, and then both of our rods went twing. It's like, come on.
You ever seen like saltwater guys, and they're like on videos and stuff, and they're jigging for their cod river, and they're just like, they drop it down and they're like jerk, jerk, jerk. And
yeah.
Or when they get a tuna, right, on like wicked tuna, and they start like setting the hook super hard, like
yes.
15 times in a row. That's what this guy's doing on the side with a salmon on.
Yeah.
And he's like, like ripping on this thing. And of course, it snaps Jesse's line. And then, I think at the end of it, he's still, insists it was his, like, oh, you broke me off. It's like Jesse was fighting this thing for a good minute before it swam in front of you.
I forget who we were fishing with, because like me and Andrew, we're not one to start fights. Like, I'll yell at a guy if he's doing something stupid, but I'm not going to be like, whoa, bro, that was my fish, But we were fishing with someone, and I forget who it was, Andrew, and they were legit screaming at the guy. I was like, hey, I'll let him scream at him for me. But so basically the moral of the story is, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of when other people fish on. Because like Arthur said, if you hook a salmon and it goes on a hot run and you don't tell anyone that it's coming, that's not their fault if they snag your line. Like, they don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be tracking where people's fish are going. Like, you might not even hear the guy's drag singing if he's down the pier, right? So just make people aware.
200 feet down shore.
Yeah. Like, most people won't be upset. Like, I've had a few guys get mad sometimes, like, oh, because they have to stop casting for 5 minutes. But it's like, if you're an actual angler, and I use the word angler because like there's some people that fish that aren't anglers. they're just idiots. But if you're an actual angler, you will not be upset when someone else catches a fish. On the pier, when someone catches a fish, it's like a celebration. Like, everyone's like, oh, they're looking, they're ready with the net. And then when they finally get it up, everyone's like, yeah, like it's like a team effort almost, even though, there's like 20 guys watching one guy catch a fish. No one's going to be mad.
What color glow spoon you're using.
You're like, it's glow color.
It's just not that too. It's because, like, say no one's catching anything and you see someone catch, that's like hope. That's a ray of hope. So that's why we're all like, yes, I caught something. That means I can, like, as fishermen, we're very delusional, right? So we're okay, if he catches something, I'm like only two guys down from him. That means I can catch something too. So.
Is there any memorable stories for yourself, Arthur?
Oh, man. Casting,
like, what was your favorite shore casting or funniest shore casting moment?
Oh, man. I've had so many good memories, but it's not, to be honest, it's not even a casting memory. It's more like we went out there to cast, right? And they weren't hitting anything. They weren't hitting no spoon, and we see them. And they were like, why aren't they hitting anything? And then one of my buddies is just like, you know what, man, I'm just going to throw some skein out there and see what happens. And then all of a sudden, it ended up being a skein day out in the pier, in the lake. So if you can imagine, you have a float rod, and you're catching salmon out in the lake, and they can go anywhere all in the lake. It was probably one of my, like, hands down, one of my most favorite bites I've ever experienced, and it never happened again. It never happened again, but it was probably super memorable because we were chucking lures from. We got there in the morning, we saw the sunrise, and maybe we hit a couple fish, obviously, like how it is standard, and then it just stopped. We couldn't get nothing, and then the fish that we did get, we were just hitting them on the body. And like, I don't want that. I don't want to catch a fish on the tail and I'll lose my bait and it gets spooled. There's no point. So they weren't really hitting body baits. They weren't really chasing. But as soon as we threw some skein out there, it was just bobber down after bobber down. And we were just, we stayed out there almost all day and we were just absolutely gassed. And it was just me and my friends. And it was probably one of the best bites I've ever experienced. And it was super memorable. And yeah, we try it over and over again. We never caught a bite like that ever again.
There's something special about the skein bite. Like,
yeah.
Chuck it, like getting that hit on a Clio or a J13. It's just, they try to obliterate it. It's insane. But something about catching a 25-pound salmon on a big chunk of eggs and your bobber's just like, phoom.
Not just that, you're on lighter gear. Your rod is 13 feet. Your bobber's massive. You probably only have 10-pound line. And your chances of getting spooled are way, way more. So, yeah. But don't get me wrong, like you said, a lot of guys, that's why we're having this whole podcast, is because we're trying to get guys to experience getting trucked by a salmon, either by either a body bait, you get T-boned, or a spoon, we're fluttering, and they just absolutely hammer it. It's like you said, it's something that people need to experience. Like when you took Andrew for his first time, you're like, how am I going to know? Oh, buddy.
You'll know.
You're going to know.
Like people like bass guys, they don't, I always try to explain to them, like, you don't really fight, like say like you're largemouth bass fishing, using heavy tackle, like 65-pound braid sometimes, heavy action rods or heavy power rods to catch like generally a 2-pound fish. And like, I get it, like you're fishing heavy cover and it's about efficiency, but you never fight. Like, it's never like you're largemouth fishing and you're like, they're taking drag, like not really. But salmon, it's like your reel is sizzling because the spool is spinning so fast and you cannot tighten it down tight enough or else it'll snap. And nothing will stop them. They're just pure muscle on both sides of their spine. It's just like, it's insane.
That's what
I love it.
I always tell people, I'm like, you're at their mercy. You will be humbled out there sometimes, right? Like you could think you could do everything. The only thing, like you said, you can only do two things. You could either tighten your drag and then snap off your line, or just let the fish spool you. There's it's a very humbling experience, trust me.
And every guy in the pier will tell you a story about the day they got spooled. At least once. Like
by a 50-pounder too.
Oh yeah, at least. It was double the size of the world record in Ontario. I just remember the first time I got spooled, I had a 4,000 Stratic, and in my mind at the time, I was like 14, 15. I was like, salmon can't spool me on this thing. It's got, a lot of capacity, right? Dude, I hooked this fish. It must have been over 30. And it just went straight out through the harbor, out past it must have been like out by the pier, and literally it jumped like to show me like, haha, sucker. And then it went down and it just kept going. And I just saw my line just slowly, like there's only a few wraps left, and it got to the last and ting, gone.
That sound,
ting. And I felt bad because I'm like, okay, there's a salmon with 300 feet of line pulling out, but whatever.
That sound will give all of us nightmares. If you've been spooled, that's the sound you hear.
Yeah. So, if you're doing an all-day trip or an all-night trip, maybe bring an extra spool. Me and Arthur were old enough to know when you used to buy a reel and it came with 2 spools, right?
Yes.
But you might have to bring another reel with full line. So just in case, have a backup reel. But yeah. Anyway, we have those questions from Instagram. Do you want to do those?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I put a question on Instagram.
Carp questions.
Yeah, it's funny. I put up a question on Instagram and I was like, ask Arthur a question specifically about shore casting for salmon. And then I got all these random questions that were just like, they have nothing to do with salmon fishing from shore or like not even salmon at all. So it's like, what setup do you recommend for carp fishing? And it's like, I don't know if he'd know that. So we're not going to ask the random ones. Some of these questions are really good. So the way that we do questions, I don't know if we did this last time with you, Arthur, but I'm going to ask you a question and you're going to answer it in 30 seconds or less.
Okay, yeah. No
because a lot of these questions, a lot of it will be like repetition for emphasis because we already kind of discussed it, but
no problem.
People like to hear their name read on the podcast sometimes.
For sure.
And if it's not within 30 seconds, what we do is we just cut your mic and you're done for the rest of the podcast. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Here's a question from Codes77. He says, does a fluoro leader matter for abrasion resistance or just run straight braid?
Oh, that like we talked about. So the reason why I like fluorocarbon is for abrasion, because the pier, the rocks, stuff like that, it helps. And then with the whole like being at fluorocarbon see-through, it helps during the day, right? I don't think you need to use fluorocarbon during the night because it's already low light, but during the day for sure. But again, if the bite is on, water's kind of already stained and stuff like that, just go straight braid. But yeah, if you want to try fluorocarbon, go right ahead. I think it's a great. You can't go wrong with it.
Here's a question from Dernier Vol. I'm definitely not pronouncing that right. He says, can you smash salmon in the creeks on J13s as well?
Yeah, you could if you find a deep enough pool, yes. And then when people say that salmon don't chase, they do. But the reason why we don't do it is because there's so many fish in the creek that you could be just raking backs. So again, snagging, very frowned upon, highly illegal. So you don't want, and again, you don't want to be losing a $20 lure because you hit a salmon in the back. So if you do want to toss something in the creek, I highly suggest something go smaller. So maybe like a J11, a J6, those spinners.
Flatfish.
Ow, flatfish. Yes, flatfish. Something smaller. Presentation, because and again, there's nothing wrong with tossing lures in the creek. It's just you want to be selective where you're tossing them. You don't want to be tossing them in rapids and stuff like that. If you can find a deep enough pool where the fish are actually moving and stuff like that, and then sometimes you can even see them actually hit it. So yeah, precisely, you can, but not I wouldn't throw a J13 for sure.
It's too big. Yeah, and then you'll get some weird looks too if you're doing that.
100%.
So I've done a little bit of lure fishing. I don't really fish creeks a lot, but back when I was younger, me and Andrew used to go out and we would chuck like little flatfish, little crankbaits, little spinners, stuff like that. And I've caught quite a few coho, especially on them.
Yep, you're not wrong about that.
I always say to people, when you fish the creeks, they definitely will hit lures. A lot of people will be like, they won't hit lures. You're just snagging them in the face. Like, dude, they chase and you watch them eat it. But the thing is, you have to find a very specific fish. Like I'd say like of 100 salmon, 90% of them want nothing to do with you. Of the 10% that is left, there's only maybe 2% of them that will actually bite. Of that 10%, they'll chase and like turn away last minute. You have to find the right fish that's just aggressive or annoyed enough to hit your lure. So be selective on where you cast. Like Arthur said, like if you're fishing a big pool and you see like a bunch of salmon milling around, start target fishing them and trying to get the lure in front of their face. But you shouldn't just be blind casting into like a big area with like 50 salmon in it because you're going to snag them. It's just the way it is. Yeah.
Something else that is a good idea when you're using lures in the creek is, let's say you're using like a small flatfish or something that's maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches long, let's say. Those treble hooks that it comes with are probably going to bend out trying to fight a good sized salmon too. But if you put on a single hook with the eye facing the correct way, so you get essentially your treble hook replacements that are single hooks, you can usually upsize the hook strength so it'll hold a lot better, and as well less likely to start snagging things because you only have, let's say, 2 single hooks hanging off the back rather than a couple treble hooks there. But that can help as well fishing the creeks. And again, once you are hooked with a nice single hook, less chance of it throwing it at that point too.
We started using J13s with single hooks.
Yeah,
like we troll these behind the boat.
I don't want to go any longer than we have to, but that's exactly what I was going to suggest. We could do another segment, but yeah, precisely what Jesse's showing you guys, you could do exactly like that too with your J13, even your spoons too. You can replace the hooks off your spoons, and precisely just like that.
When it comes to short casting for salmon, in my experience, you probably do hook more fish on a treble hook, but when you hook one on a single hook, they almost never get off.
Yes.
The barb is way bigger. The hook, it gets in the boniness of their face a lot better. Like if you look at a treble hook, yes, it has 3 hooks, but each individual hook is way smaller.
Yes.
Like a single Siwash hook is a much larger hook, but it's still really sharp, has a good barb. Me and Andrew, we've gotten kind of back and forth. I used to be like, oh, I'm only throwing single hooks. And then, we'd miss a few fish and be like, oh, back to the trebles, Yeah. So we go back and forth. But for trolling, I find the singles are pretty good. I don't know. Anyway, next question. We have one from Styx Cunningham. He says, is a 9-foot medium moderate spinning rod strong enough for Lake Ontario salmon? Is it too long or short?
No, we discussed this already, but yeah, medium heavy, 9 foot, 9.5. I think that's the cutoff line you should start off at. And then max is like 12. I know guys throw 13 foots. It's too long. But again, the longer the rod, and then the much stiffer is the distance, right? That's what you want. And obviously the action when you're fighting a fish. So Yeah, I throw a 9.5. So I have a 9.5 and I have a 10.5. So I probably want to get a longer one, but there's nothing wrong with the 9.5.
I mean, the extra like 10, 15 feet of casting distance that you get might not be worth the arm pain of casting a 12-foot rod all day.
Again, I don't want to go longer than we have to, but the reason why I have I like the shorter one is because I can go out into the lake and the pier, but I can also go inside like the harbors, and I can go into like little tighter spaces. So yeah, because like I don't want to have a long rod and I'm just casting maybe like just 20 feet, right?
See, I like the rule where you have to be one rod length away from the guy beside you. That's why I use a 20-foot rod. Get in my zone, guys. Get out of here.
It's just like one of those like long extendable poles they use in like China when they're fishing.
Yeah, I was gonna say
a painter's pole on.
Where's that carp question? That's what we
All right, here's a question from Colton. He says, when is the best time for short casting? When should we be out already?
Should we out now? Oh, now. I'm joking. But again, you got to play it by ear, look at the weather, look at the temperatures and stuff like that. I've looked in the forecast for 14 days and it's just pure sun, pure heat. It's going to be hot. This is a hot summer, guys. So don't expect it to be an early run or anything like that, which is great because then when the run does come, it's going to be
It'll
hot,
be
heavy.
huge.
It's going to be thick. Yeah. That's why I said, I talked to I got a couple guys messaging me in Alaska and they said their salmon runs are absolutely unreal right now. And then Michigan is already getting their salmon runs because they're usually the earliest to get their runs. And yeah, they're absolutely having a great run right now too. So it's just the beginning. So I think for us here in Ontario, I think we're going to have a great salmon run here, even on the state side too, on Lake Ontario. I think they're going to get a good salmon run.
Do you think that's, I'm losing my brains here. What was the question we just talked about?
Well, I think what time, or is it a good time now or later?
Right. That's what it was. So setting, like we talked before about the issues of having like seasons for fish because it changes all the time of the year as to when something's going to spawn and whatnot, because there's so many variables for it. But is there perhaps a sign? Like we talked before, I think in that video actually, like in the evenings when you feel like you want to put on a hoodie when the sun goes down, like that's a good time. Is there something like that where you kind of look for a sign yourself of, like, oh, there's no more monarch butterflies. Now I'm going to go salmon fishing. Like, is there something that you look out for to kind of tell you it's gonna start?
On the rain, because obviously cooler temperatures and the rain. That's what you want to look for as the run starts to come. You know what I mean? So right now, so that's why some years it's earlier than others. Because I think last summer, 2 summers ago, it was just constantly rain, and we got fish as early as mid-August. Like I remember my first fish was like I think August like 4th or something like that. It was like a good push came in. We went out to the pier, we caught a couple fish, and then it was a lull. And then they shot right back out. And then we waited till like the prime time, which is basically like end of August, beginning of September. And then it just, so that's what you want to look for. But right now think about it. There is no inclination for these fish to be coming anywhere near these river mouths, right? Super hot. The boats are still catching them way out. So,
The water is super low right now too.
Yeah, there you go. So
yeah, the fish need a reason to come close. And right now, like, here's the thing, this podcast is coming out and it's going to be mid-August, right? That could change in the next few weeks if we're going to get a bunch of rain in, but in the next week or two, it's probably not going to be the best.
No, it's not.
Just a heads up.
I already looked at it. It's pure sun. Even if we do get rain, it's still not enough. So
yeah, it has to be a really torrential rain at this point.
And cool temperatures at night. You know what I mean?
Here's another question. We cover this, but maybe just you could use specific colors. Blake B Outdoors, he says, what are your top 3 lure choices if you could only have 3?
Oh, okay. So like a watermelon. I don't know if I have it here. So this one right here. So watermelon, moonshine, and then obviously our favorite, a J13 fire tiger, and then probably like a smelt live target. But yeah, those are probably the 3. So like a body bait. So body bait during the day, and then something to glow at night, and then a jointed, to kind of piss them off, like that. The median, you can use it at night, and you can use it during the day. So that's the 3 things I would cover. So something that glows, something that is articulated, and then something that vibrates. And
all these lures and rods and reels that we talked about today, I'm going to link in the show notes. Again, they're not like affiliate links. I'm going to link some local tackle shops. So if you do end up buying anything, make sure you mention that you heard it recommended on our channel. And it'll do absolutely nothing for us. And they'll probably say, who? But yeah, we'll link a bunch of stuff. Again, I think like Arthur said, with lures, it's very easy to go overcomplicate it.
Yeah, down the rabbit hole. Yeah.
if I was going salmon fishing, like I used to bring a bunch of stuff. Now, literally, I just bring this little box, and that's overkill. Even like you just need a handful of spoons, Cleos. Like we've done good with Len Thompson's, but like Cleos are classic, right? Just get a some glow ones, some silver ones, a few of them, maybe like 6 spoons, a few J13s, maybe a few like crankbaits, and that's it. Like that's all you need. You don't need anything crazy. Definitely moonshine. Those things are absolute weapons. Oh yeah. When I worked at Sale, I got a really insane discount, and before I quit, this was years ago. Yeah, I bought like a whole rack of them. I just like slid them all into a basket, and I think with my discount, they were
probably like $3.99.
At the time, I think they were like $6.99.
That's still a good deal.
Like they were cheap, but I got a discount on them too. So the sale discount, if you ever looking to get a job, the sale discount is amazing. I think I paid like $3 each for them, and I've been living off that supply for literally years. I only have I think I have 2 left that for the original sale ones, but now they're they got to be over $10.
Yeah, they're like $10.99 now.
Yeah, like it's insane, but whatever. We're getting old. I posted something on Instagram the other day. The same thing. When I was at Sale, I bought a whole bunch of glow.
Oh yeah, I saw that story.
And I still have one in the original package, and it said on it $3.99 for a glow Clio, and I was like, the good old days. You could buy like a whole whack of them for $20. Now they're like $10.99 or something. Yeah,
it's funny you say that because like I always tell guys who are getting into the sport, like either center pin, flow fishing, or casting, or even you guys musky fishing. If you had got into the sport way before, you would have saved a lot of money now. So anybody who's getting into anything like fishing related, you guys are spending so much money on gear, like so much money.
They say how to become a millionaire salmon fishing.
Yeah, you start off as a billionaire.
Exactly. All right, we'll do one more question. A lot of I'd like to thank a lot of the listeners for sending in these questions, but literally like 90% of these we literally discussed. Like there's tons of questions here, and they're like, where would you fish? Like, what areas would you fish? When do you fish? What lure colors? Like we covered all that. So, we see your questions. We thank you for them, but we're not going to like talk the same thing. Arthur, he has stuff to do. He has to start sharpening his hooks for salmon.
Sharpening? No, I just let them dull.
So yeah, we love having Arthur on again. This isn't his first time on the podcast, but we had a great time. I think this is his second time back, right?
Yeah,
Third.
No, I appreciate it. We could make it an annual thing.
Again, we try and do these episodes. It might be information you've heard before. Might be just a good reminder. So like, oh yeah, I forgot I lost all my Cleos last year. I should buy some more. So make sure those things sell off the shelf pretty quick. So take this episode as a nice reminder if you have done salmon fishing before that you want to get ready for it again. It's coming up soon. If you haven't done it, by all means, get out there, try it. Get the gear that you need to be able to do so, because once you catch 1 or 2, you're going to want to do it every single fall. You're going to have an addictive issue just like the rest of us do.
You'll be hooked.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening so far. But before we leave, we have a little bit of housekeeping, which Jesse will look after for us.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. We're supposed to be professional. It happens. We are getting towards the end of the year. Like we're pretty much scheduled to the end of the year, which is pretty crazy. I mean, like it's like half the year is over, but we schedule and plan the podcast so far ahead. I'm like, okay, the rest of the year is actually, some of the episodes coming up are pretty good. This one was okay, but just kidding. This one was great. But we got some great episodes coming up. It's been a good year of guests. Like we've had a lot of great guests, like Arthur. Local, we like to have local hammers because like we're an Ontario podcast, so we like to have local guys.
Hammers,
but it's also
my screwdriver. Yeah. I'm a screwdriver.
But it's been great. We're absolutely loving it. It also helps us not have to talk as much, so it's pretty great. Just get people on the podcast that they can talk. But we'd like to thank everyone who's also on our Patreon. Again, you can join as a free member. We do a lot of there's lots of little chats that everyone's sends their fish pictures in, and we all comment on them. We're like, oh, it's a tiny one. Just kidding. We're usually pretty nice. So I'm going to put a link below. If you do find value in these podcasts, I get a lot of people that are like, I love the podcast. I listen to it every time it comes out on the way to work. Or they mention to us all the time. I'm not even saying this. I'll get messages on Instagram. They're like, dude, I've learned so much from the podcast or from your guests. It helped me catch fish. That's great. If you want to support us, you can become a Patreon member and donate $2 a month. It just helps us cover the cost of running the show and doing giveaways so that me and Andrew don't have to, open our own wallet and do it, which is what we've done the last 2 years. This year, though, we really appreciate the support. I'd like to mention one more thing about followers. I was at Gagnon's the other day. I was buying a few things before my camping trip this past weekend, and I walked into the section of plastic baits along the wall, and this guy looked at me and then walked away. And I was like, okay. And then I walked out and he just looks at me and he's like, I like the podcast. And I was like, thank you, random guy. It's like, okay. And it turns out it was a guy that I only know him by his Instagram name. Like, I don't know this guy, I just know his Instagram name. And I've messaged him over the years, and it was a guy that had been following us for years. So it's cool to see people that like the podcast and they tell us. If you ever see us in public, don't make it weird, but totally come up to us. We love to talk, especially Andrew. So yeah. Anyway, that's all the housekeeping I just wanted to say. But I want to add one more thing about this episode. Over the years of salmon fishing, and also putting out some YouTube videos and doing other salmon podcast episodes in the past, I've had a lot of people tell me that they've tried salmon fishing and it didn't work out for them. They tried, they went out, they never caught a fish. My advice would be just keep at it. Take the tips that Arthur's telling you, which are solid tips. Like, those tips are 100% what you need to do to catch fish. It's not complicated, but there are some tweaks and some techniques that Arthur talked about that will help the odds be way better in your favor of actually hooking a fish, right? But if you're just a beginner, be patient, get out there. It's a grind sometimes until you catch your first one. Sometimes it's like jig fishing with bass. It's just like no confidence. And then finally you catch one on a jig and you're like, I love this. It's the same thing. Just keep going, do it. If you have any questions, send us a message. Send Arthur a question. Just be like, hey, exact GPS coordinates. Don't do that. But yeah, just stick with it. And I guarantee the reward will be there. Sometimes it's a bit of a grind. So hang in there.
And just as a brief shout out, I promised him I would do it. Happy anniversary to Carl and his wife who were on that boat on the East Coast. That was, he said he listened to the podcast. So hopefully we do have that new listener out there in Nova Scotia. So hope you're listening and hope you're doing well. But before we end the episode, as tradition states, we have the quote of the week, and probably caught off guard for that is Arthur.
No, not caught. I researched these things. I researched. I just don't come on this show and not know anything. Okay.
That's what I do.
All right. So for the first time in show history, we have a prepared quote of the week.
So the quote of the week is "Be comfortable being uncomfortable." And the reason I say this, you can't be a fair weather fisherman if you want to have these epic days fishing. And we're not really talking to like novice guys. We're talking about to the guys who just want to like get better at fishing. You got to experience. You just can't go when it's beautiful rainbows and sunshine. You got to go when it's rainy. You got to go when it's cold. You got to go when it's windy. You got to go when it's bad. And this is how you're going to become a better angler, because you're going to learn things from these experiences. All my great times that I fished is when I went outside, when it was cold, when it was raining, when it was sleeting. So, and this applies for salmon fishing too. When you think it's like, oh, there's a storm coming, I can't go out to the pier, or use your judgment. Like, yeah, if it's super sketchy outside, I'm not saying go out there when it's super dangerous, there's lightning, and you feel the electricity through your rod, okay? I'm not saying that. I'm saying go when it's bad outside. Go when, like, if you think you can't handle it, go try. And you don't even necessarily need to go out to the pier. You could go somewhere where like you're on the ground near some rocks. There's safe ways of doing things, but unsafe ways. So I think that's my best quote and my best advice for these new anglers. You gotta go. You just can't go when it's easy. There's no waves. There's no rain. It's nice outside. You can't do that. You're never going to become a great angler that way. I'm going to be super like transparent with you and super realistic. I get it. Everyone has a 9 to 5. Sometimes we can't get out when it's perfect conditions and stuff like that. But if it just happens to be that you it's a Saturday and you're free and it's raining a little bit or it's really windy, just go. What's stopping you? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what a lot of the new anglers are afraid of, that like, oh, it's going to be terrible fishing because it's raining outside or it's cold outside. That's not how it is, man. So,
us old guys love that. We're like, hey, it'll keep the fools at
home.
Oh,
100%. 100%.
Because we're clearly old.
I loved that. Now our issue is say it in one sentence.
So yeah, be comfortable with being uncomfortable.